Your next generation tractor is already in your machine shed.
The world needs it.
It was obvious to me that automation or autonomy is going to solve the labor problem.
How do you provide purpose to your employees right now?
My goal is for the success of the company.
Welcome, listeners. I'm Seb Wichmann, your host of the DoGood Founders podcast, where we dive deep into raw and meaningful conversations with visionary founders and CEOs who see beyond profits, elevating the lives of employees and vendors and the planet we call home. So it's with great excitement to welcoming today's guest, Craig Rupp, a visionary entrepreneur with a remarkable journey. Growing up on a farm, Craig transitioned into a successful career in electrical engineering, contributing to the development of cellular technology over 25 years. As a true serial entrepreneur, he has founded 6 companies, including 640 Labs, which was acquired by Monsanto. Today, he leads an agriculture tech company revolutionizing rural farming with robotic tractors, offering solutions to labor shortages across over 25 states. Craig's leadership is defined by his dedication to creating a culture of innovation and trust. His early hires played a crucial role in shaping the company's ethos, emphasizing employee satisfaction along profitability. From navigating startup challenges to scaling with purpose, Craig's experiences offer valuable insights for leaders in any industry. Join us as we uncover his story, vision, and the lessons he has learned along his incredible long journey and lifetime. So welcome, Craig. I was really inspired to bringing you on. And I said, as we spoke initially, you have this innate ability as a human, as a person, to putting your employees first, to putting your staff on the pedestal instead of yourself. And I remember you saying, Seb, I want my employees to walk away from the experience having worked with me after years and years. Eventually they move on by having said, this was the best work or best time in my life I've ever had. So talk me through kind of, who are you? How does it all come about? Talk us through that.
Okay. So I'm a farm boy turned entrepreneur. I became an electrical engineer, and I just starting companies in my career. I look back on my career and, some of the companies that I worked for were some of the best years of my career. And, it was fun. It was interesting work. And if you look at our employees, they're looking for a job, and, for one reason or another, they were compelled to start looking at, these go to work at a startup company. And why would they choose going to a startup? And, they know that they're part of something large, and they know they're going to play a pivotal role. They're not just going to be, 1 in 1,000 people. They're going to be more like 1 in 10. They're going to have to go beyond the call of duty in their daily job. So, and I said that earlier, my goal, is for the success of the company, but not at all costs. And what I really want to make sure is, I have a lot of young people working for me, and 20 years from now, I want them to look back and say, these were some of the best years of their career. And so what do? I give them a purpose. I give them something that they own, that they're accountable for. And I give them, a lot of freedom to make decisions. Not, we're a small company, and I can't have a meeting to make every decision, and I'm not around. I can't make all the decisions. So a lot of our employees are given, quite a lot of leeway to, in their day-to-day, activities.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing. It's so fascinating, Craig. And then we get into, Sabanto in a second, because you do some incredible things, like, looking at robotics in rural farming around tractors. It's almost like when I looked at your website initially, Craig, it almost looked like, the movie Interstellar. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
I mean, right? I mean, that is so cool, because when we spoke about there is a shortage around, employees and all that. And I'm fascinated how you came up with the idea. We discuss this down the road, but talk us through, because this is so valuable when we, talk about a company nowadays, post-COVID, hopefully gave it the last kind of, push across the border, so to speak, where a company that merely looks at profitability, in my eyes, is not going to survive. People want to feel a sense of belonging. They want to feel listened to. They want to feel that they are valued. Like, talk us through, where does this trust in people come from? That you approach your work very much with, hey, you have the lenience, I trust you. You provide them with purpose. You mentioned, I think you have 42 roughly employees. Is that correct?
I do. Yeah.
So it's not a $10, it's not a 10 staff headcount. It's a significant staffing, so to speak, where, as you said, you can't anymore be there and do it all. Talk us through it to get to a question here. How do you, because I struggle with this myself, being, struggling with maybe providing my staff with the authority and with the trust that they are very much deserve because of myself. How do you do that? How do you trust somebody? How do you provide purpose to your employees right now, especially in the beginning?
Well, I guess I'll start off by saying that employees, I think, are smarter and, I guess, responsible enough to make wise decisions than we give them credit for. And I'll go back to, was it Malcolm Gladwell had a book, Blink.
I love that book. Yeah.
And he was going over the 10,000 hours. So quite often I think about that. You get someone with 5 years of experience, they're pretty responsible, and they know, they'll make the right decision over 90% of the time. And as far as I see it, 90%, that's an A, right? So, I do trust the people, and, after a while, they're always making the right decisions. And, quite often when people come to me and, if you come to me to complain about something, the first thing I say is, I'm not a complaint department. Okay. What are you going to do to fix this? And, I've had that talk with a number of my employees, and they understand that, you're completely responsible for the vehicle OS or the hardware or the cable harnesses, and this is your baby, and I can't look over your shoulder. I don't have time. And, I do have a structure in the company that, we do have the procedures and processes in place to make sure, things are tested, things are reviewed and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's not really my responsibility to overlook and micromanage a lot of my employees.
That is, I found, I feel like almost you put this away as being, I feel like it comes so natural to you, Craig, that for the listeners, including myself, I think we struggle so much exactly with this point. And you probably crafted your approach also over so many different years, right? By being able to provide your staff with the necessary trust to empower them and to make them shine and all that. So kudos to you. I think that really inspired me, and in fact was the reason that I wanted to bring you on. Fair to say. Talk us through Sabanto. What do you guys do?
Okay, so we make a retrofit kit that attaches to off-the-shelf tractors, and we currently support over 21 models today. And this retrofit kit contains GPS receivers, cameras, processors, obstacle detection, perception systems, AI. And what we do is we turn that off-the-shelf tractor into an autonomous tractor. From day one, our, tenet or principle was, your next generation tractor is already in your machine shed. So farmers don't have to go out and buy a brand new machine, spend all this capital expense on a completely new, unproven platform. We get them there in a much more financially cost-effective way. And what we're doing is we're working with farming operations across the U.S. and into Canada right now. And what we do is, for some of these farm operations they're doing, very mundane, field operations, what we do is we install our system on their tractor, and then we train them and teach them how to deploy autonomy into their operations.
You do that because you experienced a labor shortage in your own company. Is that correct? What was the initial
It started, so when I was, when my company 640 Labs got acquired by Monsanto, I was working hand in hand with farmers, and, you chat with them, what keeps them up that night. Every last farmer I talked to said labor. And it's not the cost of labor, it's the lack of labor. And, I spent a number of years automating, high volume manufacturing plants throughout Asia and even Europe. And it was obvious to me that, automation or autonomy is going to solve the labor problem. And so I was at the Climate Corporation, which is a subsidiary of Monsanto, and I really wanted to start an autonomy team, and I was told no. So I figured that, well, I really, really want to do this. So I quit and then started Sabanto.
That is interesting. Walk us through some of the operational challenges. What did you encounter operationally early on? You're obviously dealing with, not just the engineering and kind of the invention of it all, but talk us through some of the operational challenges that are right now present in your business in Sabanto.
Yeah, just recently we started what we call the virtual field operator. So this is something we kind of learned going out into the market. Farmers, if you've ever been around one, the minute they jump out of their truck in the morning to the minute they leave at night, they're continually surrounded by emergencies. Everything is vying for their attention, and for them to adopt autonomy, one of the challenges we had was the farmer is not. They don't respond to notifications in an appropriate time. And what happens is if you have an autonomous system that finishes a field, it'll be 2 hours until they respond to that system being completed. That's just the way they are. And so what we did was we created what we call a virtual field operator. And so we have, there's one right outside my office. She comes in the morning. The farmers tell her what for field operations need to be done that day. And then what she does is she deploys the system, she monitors the system, she moves it from one field to the next on private drives. And she became a part of their operation. And she's currently monitoring 17 tractors across 5 farming operations. So she's an integral part of their farming operations virtually.
So how does this work? So there's one person virtually, not in person, responsible for 17 tractors right now to make sure that these tractors get moved from field to field, or how do we imagine that?
Her responsibility is to keep these tractors moving and performing field operations. So let me give you an example. At the onset of the day, she gets a call from, Brandon down in Georgia near Atlanta. he tells her, I want you to do field A, field B, field C today. And so Brandon puts the tractor in field A and then calls her and says, and then what our virtual field operator then does, what that person does is deploys the mission on field A, performs the field operation. 2 hours later, when it's done, for example, then she moves it to field B. Then she performs the field operation in field B. And then, another 2-3 hours later, she moves it to field C and does that field. And then if there's something like, we're running low on fuel, what she does is she either notifies the quote fuel team in the farming operation that I will have this system parked on the northwest corner of this field, and she'll text message them. So she's an integral part of their farming operation. And, what's interesting is the lady that have it now, she's a grandmother. She's never driven a tractor before. She's never set foot on those fields. She's never seen in person the tractors. And she's done over, I'd say 30 to 40,000 acres of field operations for people in, over 1,000 miles away for them.
That is incredible. And so what do the farmers do? Do they kind of sit on their veranda and watch the tractor
That's the
go?
future.
Or like, what do they do while the tractor is doing its duty?
Yeah. I think it's the future where I think it's extremely popular with a lot of our customers, and some of our customers are building the virtual field operator locally, and then other farmers have reached out to us and said, "Hey, could you do this for me?" Absolutely not a problem.
Amazing. Your team is remote, or are they partially local, or?
We're spread across 2 operations. We have our headquarters are in Itasca, Illinois, and then our field operations, our field testing, our hardware group is in Ames, Iowa. Yeah, they're about 5 hours apart.
5 hours apart. So how do you keep so we talked about you, right, as the head of the helm, the leader of the group, so to speak, keeping the responsibility where responsibility is due at the person and not trying to interfere too much and kind of pushing back at moments when they have questions, and all that, which you are so incredible at. And I learn a lot from you on that. I know already. Talk us through, like, how do you keep the culture up? Like, being remote, being partially, in 2 different locations. Like, do you have all hands? Do you meet with them on a, monthly basis, yearly basis? How do you keep the culture alive and growing as a company?
Okay, I do that a number of ways. Some of the people in Iowa report to some of the people in Itasca, Illinois, or Chicago. Let's just call it Chicago. It's outside of Chicago. So there's people in Iowa that report to people in Chicago, and vice versa. So that's one. The other thing too is, like, for example, I have, our solution requires, front end, back end, requires embedded software and hardware, cable harnesses, mechanicals, whatever. Quite often, what I do is I send multiple people from multiple sites to the customer's facility. I'll send them down. Like this recently, I sent 6 engineers, 3 from Iowa and 3 from Illinois. I sent them down to Georgia, and they spent 2 weeks together fixing problems and working with
from different locations.
Yeah. And when you're out in the middle of nowhere, sitting in a pole shed, trying to get this all to work,
you get to know each other.
you get to know each other and you build alliances, and that it does. It's a wonderful thing.
Again, like I think, like to the listeners, for myself, I think there's so much to learn from you because, you know, your industry is, you know, I was about to say it's dying, but it is such a bad word to say, right? But let's say it's not anymore. Like, it's so important. To me, it's one of the most important industry there is, because we need food to eat, and healthy foods, right? And not just, you know, the stuff that's a lot of times is presented to us in supermarkets. So I think it's such one of the most important industry there is. And yet it is an industry that is not in everyone's, not on top of minds, right? So technology, which you are obviously in, but let's say SaaS and marketing is what's drive nowadays, and, you know, fintech and whatever it is, right? So, but I think there's so much to learn from you, Craig. The fact that you get people together, and not just in a training environment for them to get to know each other for 1.5 days in all hands like everyone else does it. You actually bring real practicality and applicability to it, where you get different teams that otherwise don't see each other throughout the year. At times, they probably have never seen each other in the very beginning when somebody just started. You get them together and get them to collaborate. You get them to solve problems. You get them to work together as a family, as a strong unit, as a bond. And you get to bonds, they get to bonds, right? Like, what do you say to that? Like, have you seen this being effective? Have you seen this being ineffective? Talk us through this a little bit.
You know, what's going through my mind was, well, so two things are going through my mind right now. I used to do this in a company I worked before. We would go to all parts of the world. You know, we're in China, we're in Korea, Singapore. You know, we're in France, Germany.
Germany as well.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
nice.
and we used to deploy technology in electronic manufacturing sites, and I used to take a team with me of 4 or 5 people, and, you know, I was responsible for the algorithms, and I had another guy there. He was in charge of the database. This other guy's in charge of interfacing with the UT. Another guy's, you know, in charge of the, you know, the instrumentation and whatnot. And it was kind of interesting. It turned out kind of interesting. I didn't think about this until after the fact, years later, that, you know, there's first of all, there's a lot of peer pressure. You want all your stuff working, at least you think it works, before you show up. You know, you don't want to be the person with that, you know, everyone's standing around watching. Why isn't it working? Why isn't your stuff working? Because, so there's a little peer pressure. The other thing too is misery loves company. And some of these outings that we used to take, I'll be honest with you, I had some really good memories because, you know, we would work, you know, we would get there at 7 a.m. and leave at 7 p.m. and then would go have a couple beers after work and all right, so this is, you know, and regroup. All right, we got to do this tomorrow. And you'd think about, oh, why isn't this working? And you'd brainstorm, you know, over a couple beers at the end of the day. And then what happens is you develop, you know, a brotherhood or sisterhood with the people you're working with. And then, you know, everyone, you know, it's a great way to build a team, Seb. And you know what? If you look at like military exercises, quite often they'll send all these army guys out into, you know, the middle of nowhere, and they have to stay in a tent for a couple days and whatever. What that really does, I think what they're doing is they're just building this, you know, this collaboration, this, you know, these people. They learn to depend on each other, and they get along a lot better.
So what would you say? So you have been there and done that for many years. You know, I know you're still, I think, 32, looking at you, but that's a little German joke.
No,
you have been there and done that, right? So you have been around the block. And so there's so much goodness and experience here. What would you say to a tech founder that is maybe even a CTO, very, drilled in on technology? Yes, we as founders understand that culture is important because really truly what a company is, it's a bunch of people with a bunch of brains that we need to understand how to develop to go from good to great, right? What would you say to a founder that is kind of a little drilled in on technology and has not the emphasis on the team bonding, the kind of standing in the rain outside the tent, so to speak, mentality you just talked about, like the military has? What would some words of wisdom be from you to him or her?
Okay. For starters, get 5 years of experience, and you're going to find out how an industry works, how a market works. I think that helps. The second thing is, I think, you're going to need investment of some sort. You're going to have to, initially you're going to have to, whether you have uncles, parents, or you're going to have to convince them that this is a great idea. And I guess the one word of advice is, be humble, sincere, and realistic. I know a lot of founders who, it's amazing how silver-tongued they are. And, sometimes, I think a lot of investors can see through that. And I always try to be realistic in that. I mean, what I'm doing, it's really hard. And I'll be honest with you, where I'm at today, it was so hard. But, if I go back 4 or 5 years, and I didn't, we had so many problems trying to get this to work. And it took us a long time to fix those problems. But when I talk to investors and whatnot, or potential investors, I make sure that, I let them know that, I think I see light at the end of the tunnel. It took us, this was not easy. And, I try to be realistic with them. And if you try to brag or kind of stretch the truth or embellish, they're going to read that. They're not stupid people, and that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. Do you believe that the world needs a bit more authenticity and honesty and just vulnerability?
Absolutely.
Craig, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. Again, it has been such an honor to have you on, because I think first time we met, I was like, yes, I like you already. And you have just this authentic, trustworthy, honest, sincere. I think sincerity is what shines through for me personally. So I want to thank you, for, I guess, giving me and giving the listeners some insights into the life of Craig, what it means to run a successful company in robotics, in farming. I think this is by itself, interstellar-like scenarios. So I love that already. And you combine this with what strikes me as a really special gift and talent, Craig, that you have harnessed over the years, which is that of humility, of vulnerability, of you trusting your team in moments where others probably would go down with a bit of a whip, right? And so you really inspired me to think and contemplate on kind of my own kind of approach to my company, to be honest. So thank you so much for all that. As a last kind of question to you, if you allow, thinking about this piece around that you mentioned, be humble, have humility, be sincere, which you talked about and which truly is you. What would be I wouldn't say advice, because we talk to very senior, founders and entrepreneurs, but what would be golden nuggets be that you would like to pass on to your fellow entrepreneurs in that regard?
All right. So we deal with farmers, and farmers tease a lot, and they'll make
Right.
fun of you. Okay, they do that, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
I tell my employees, if they're not making fun of you, then there's something wrong with you.
Oh, okay.
It is true. They make fun of everyone. The people they like, right?
They like.
Yes, they like,
Okay.
and it's
They have banter
kind of
with.
fun. Yeah, we have really good customers, and the one thing I try to do is I try to make all my employees know the customer personally. This isn't like, oh, I know their persona, whatnot. No, they personally know them. I have customers that call me all the time. They give me ideas, and they're just genuinely nice people. And they tease me. I tease them. We laugh about everything. But I think it's important also. Like I met with a farmer about a month ago, and he sat down, Red Cross. I was having a beer with him, and he said, "I will never go back." And I want to make sure that my employees, some of the leaders in the company as well, that they hear that. And the only way I can do that is if I have, I force them to have a relationship with their customers, personal relationship. They actually like it, but I make sure that you need to go out in the field. You're going to go visit this farmer with, I'm going to take, I take a software guy and I'll pair him with one of my field app engineers, and they'll go and the software guy, he's going to be working. He's not going to always be at a keyboard. He's going to be, helping hook up equipment, unload, chain down tractors and whatnot. He's there to help.
Amazing. Craig, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you. And to everyone, have a great day. Have more humility. Be more sincere. The world needs it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Seb.